Chapter 3, Section 3, Solving Inequalities Using Multiplication and Division. Yesterday we talked about using inverse operations to solve inequalities with addition and subtraction. We're still going to use inverse operations when dealing with multiplication or division, but when we multiply or divide both sides of our inequality by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. Okay, so if it was less than, it's going to become greater than. If it was greater than, it's going to become less than. That is only when you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number. You do not have to change the sign when you multiply or divide both sides by a positive number. Only when you're multiplying or dividing by a negative number on both sides. An example. It says, what are the solutions of x divided by 2 is less than negative 3, and to graph these solutions. Well, if you look at our original equation and you ask yourself what's happening to the variable x, x is being divided by a positive 2. To get rid of dividing by a positive 2, you have to multiply by a positive 2 on both sides. Notice that our 2's are going to cross out, and I'm going to be left with x. My sign does not change because I am multiplying both sides by a positive 2. Even though there's a negative 3 on the other side, that was already there. That is not what is happening on both sides. So x is still going to be less than, and negative 3 times positive 2 is a negative 6. When you graph this solution, you're going to have an open circle at negative 6, and you're going to have the line going to the left because x is less than negative 6. The next example says, what are the solutions of negative 2/3 times w is greater than or equal to 2? Notice that I am multiplying w times a negative 2/3. The opposite of multiplying by a negative 2/3 is dividing by a negative 2/3. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Notice that I am dividing on both sides by a negative 2/3. So we should know that our sign is going to flip. If we look at 2 divided by negative 2/3, you can write any whole number over 1. And if you remember, to divide fractions, you actually have to multiply by the reciprocal. So instead of having 2 over 1 divided by negative 2 over 3, we're going to have 2 over 1 times a negative 3 over 2. Remember, reciprocal means you flip the second fraction that you're dividing by. You can cross cancel here. You don't have to cross cancel. You do have a positive times a negative. If you did 2 times 3, you get 6. Divided by 1 times 2 is 2. Well, 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. To write it into the inequality, remember we're going to have w, and our sign did flip because we were dividing both sides by a negative number. So it's w is less than or equal to negative 3. To graph this inequality, we are going to have a closed circle at negative 3. And it says w is less than because our sign flipped, so we are shading to the left. The next example says a cheerleading squad earns $5.50 per car wash. How many cars does the squad need to wash to earn at least $77? Earning at least $77 means that they are going to need to earn $77 or more. When we write this inequality, we know that we're getting $5.50 per car wash. So if my variable stands for the numbers of cars that we washed, we could multiply that by 5.5, how much we're getting for each car wash, and we want that to be greater than or equal to 77. To get x by itself, I need to divide both sides by 5.5. When you divide 77 by 5.5, you get x needs to be greater than or equal to 14. That inequality tells us that the cheerleading squad has to wash at least 14 cars. The next example says, what are the solutions of negative 5a is greater than or equal to 20? If you look at your original equation and ask yourself what's happening to the variable a. Negative 5 and a written right next to each other means negative 5 times a. The opposite of multiplying by negative 5 is dividing by negative 5. Notice on both sides I am dividing by a negative number. When I am dividing by a negative on both sides, my sign flips. So I have a is less than or equal to 20 divided by negative 5 is negative 4. I need to have a closed dot at negative 4, and again I'm shading to the left because a is less than or equal to negative 4. The assignment for today is page 194, numbers 1 through 4 and 6 through 32 even.